TOS, Terms of Service. This terms of service is entered into between you and robtop Games AB, its subsidiaries, and affiliates, hereinafter robtop or us, our, or we, and applies to all robtop Games websites and services on which it is placed, collectively the services. Use of the services is also governed by robtop's privacy policy and other relevant policies, which are incorporated herein by reference. Before accessing or using the service, including browsing any robtop website or accessing a game, you must agree to these terms of service and the privacy policy. You may also be required to register an account on the service, an account. By registering for an account, or otherwise using the service, you represent that you are age 13 or older. If you are between the ages of 13 and 17, you represent that your legal guardian has reviewed and agreed to these terms. By installing, using, or otherwise accessing this service, you agree to these terms of service. If you do not agree to these terms of service, do not install, use, or otherwise access the service. robtop reserves the right, at its discretion, to change, modify, add, or remove portions of these terms of service, its privacy policy, and other relevant robtop policies at any time by posting the amended terms on the robtop service. You will be deemed to have accepted such changes by continuing to use the service. If at any point you do not agree to any portion of the then current version of our terms of service, the robtop privacy policy, or any other robtop policies, rules, or codes of conduct relating to your use of the service, your license to use the service shall immediately terminate and you must immediately stop using the service. Use of services. Age restrictions. You shall not create an account or access the service if you are under the age of 13. You shall restrict use by minors, and you will deny access to children under the age of 13. You fully accept responsibility for any unauthorized use of the service by minors. Account restrictions. You shall not, or attempt to, purchase, sell, rent, or give away your account. You shall not create an account using a false identity or information or on behalf of another person than yourself, or on behalf of someone other than yourself. You shall not use the service if you have previously been removed by robtop or have previously been banned from playing any robtop game. You shall use your account only for non-commercial purposes. You shall not use the service to advertise or solicit or transmit any commercial advertising, including chain letters, junk or spam email, or repetitive misleading messages to anyone. License. Subject to your agreement and continuing compliance with these terms of service and any other relevant robtop policies, robtop grants you a non-exclusive, non-transferable, non-sublicensable, revocable, and limited license to access and use the service for your own non-commercial entertainment purposes. You agree not to use the service for any other purpose. Login information and your account. You may be required to select a password for your account, and you may also use other credentials to access the account login information. You shall not share the account or the login information, nor let anyone else access your account, or do anything else that might jeopardize the security of your account. In the event you become aware of or reasonably suspect any breach of security, including without limitation any loss, theft, or unauthorized disclosure of the login information, you must immediately notify robtop and modify your login information. You are solely responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of the login information, and you will be responsible for all uses of the login information. robtop reserves the right to remove or reclaim any usernames at any time for any reason, including, but not limited to, claims by a third party that a username violates the third party's rights. License limitations. Any use of the service in violation of these license limitations is strictly prohibited, can result in the immediate revocation of your limited license, and may subject you to liability for violations of law. You agree that you will not, under any circumstances, engage in any act that RobTop deems to be in conflict with the spirit or intent of the service or make improper use of RobTop's support services. Use or take part, directly or indirectly, in the use of cheats, exploits, automation, software, bots, hacks, mods, or any unauthorized third-party software designed to modify or interfere with the service, any RobTop game, or any RobTop game experience. Modify or cause to be modified any files that are part of the service or any RobTop game without RobTop's express written consent. Disrupt, interfere with, or otherwise adversely affect the normal flow of the service, or otherwise act in a manner that may negatively affect other users' experience when using the service or playing RobTop's games. Disrupt, overburden, or assist in the disruption or overburdening of any computer or server used to offer or support the service or any RobTop game environment. Institute, assist, or become involved in any type of attack, including, without limitation, distribution of a virus, denial of service attacks upon the service, or other attempts to disrupt the service or any other person's use or enjoyment of the service, attempts to gain unauthorized access to the service, accounts registered to others, or to the computers, servers, or networks connected by the service, by any means other than the user interface provided by RobTop, including, but not limited to, by circumventing or modifying or attempting to circumvent or modify, or encouraging or assisting any other person to circumvent or modify any security, technology, device, or software that is part of the service. Post any information that is abusive, threatening, obscene, defamatory, libelous, or that is racially, sexually, religiously, or otherwise objectionable or offensive, or engage in ongoing toxic behavior, such as repeatedly posting information on an unsolicited bias. Post any information that contains nudity, excessive violence, or offensive subject matter that contains a link to such content. Attempt to harass, abuse, or harm, or advocate, incite, or carry out harassment, abuse, or harm of another person or group, including RobTop's employees. Make available through the service any material or information that infringes any copyright, trademark, patent, trade secret, right of policy, right of publicity, or right of any person or entity that impersonates any other person. Reverse engineer, decompile, disassemble, decipher, or otherwise attempt to derive the source code of any underlying software or other intellectual property used to provide the service or any RobTop game, or to obtain any information from the service that or RobTop game using any method not expressly permitted by RobTop. Solicit or attempts to solicit login information or any other login credentials or personal information from other users of the service or any RobTop game. Collect or post someone's private information, including personally identifiable information, whether in text, image, or video form, identification documents, or financial information through the service. RobTop reserves the right to determine what conduct it considers to be in violation of the rules of use or otherwise outside the inherent intent or spirit of these terms of service or the service itself. RobTop reserves the right to take action as a result, which may include terminating your account and prohibiting you from using the service in whole or in part. Suspension and termination of account and service. Without limiting any other remedies, RobTop may limit, suspend, terminate, modify, or delete accounts or access to the service or portions thereof if you are, or RobTop suspects that you are, failing to comply with any of these terms of service, or for any actual or suspected illegal or improper use of the service with or without notice to you. You can lose your username and persona in the service as a result of account termination or limitation, as well as any benefits, privileges, earned items, and purchased items associated with your use of the service, and robtop is under no obligation to compensate you for any such losses or results. Without limiting our other remedies, we may limit, suspend, or terminate the service and user accounts or portions thereof, prohibit access to our games and sites and their content, services, and tools, delay or remove hosted content, and take technical and legal steps to prevent users from accessing the service if we believe that they are creating risk or possible legal liabilities, infringing the intellectual property rights of third parties, or acting inconsistently with the letter or spirit of our terms of service. Additionally, we may in appropriate circumstances and at our sole discretion, suspend or terminate accounts of users who may be repeat infringers of third-party intellectual property rights. robtop reserves the rights to terminate any account that has been inactive for 180 days. robtop reserves the rights to stop offering or supporting the service or a particular game or part of the service at any time at which your license to use the service or part thereof will be automatically terminated. In such events, robtop shall not be required to provide refunds, benefits, or other compensation to users in connection with such discontinued service. Termination of your account can include disabling your access to the service or any part thereof, including any content you submitted or others submitted. You may terminate your account at any time for any reason by contacting us at support@robtopgames.com to inform robtop that you wish to terminate your account. Some additional information may be required in order for you to complete account termination. Ownership, games and service. All rights, title, and interest in and to the service, including but not limited to any games, titles, computer codes, themes, objects, characters, character names, stories, dialogue, catchphrases, concepts, artwork, animations, sound, musical compositions, audio-visual effects, methods of operation, moral rights, documentation, in-game chat transcripts, created levels, account profile information, recordings of games played using a robtop game client and the robtop game clients and used server software, are owned by robtop. robtop reserves all rights, including without limitation all intellectual property rights or other proprietary rights in connection with its games and the service. Accounts. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, you acknowledge and agree that you shall have no ownership or other property interest in the account, and you further acknowledge and agree that all rights in and to the account are and shall forever be owned by and inure to the benefit of robtop. Virtual goods and items. robtop owns, has licensed, or otherwise has rights to use all of the content that appears in the service or in robtop games. Notwithstanding any provision to the contrary herein, you agree that you have no right or title in or to any content that appears in the service, including without limitation the virtual goods or currency appearing or originating in any robtop game, whether earned in-game, purchased from robtop, or any other attributes associated with an account or stored on the service. You acknowledge that robtop is not required to provide a refund for any reason and that you will not receive money or other compensation for any unused virtual items when an account is closed, whether such closure was voluntary or involuntary. User content. Submission of user content. User content means any communications, levels, images, sounds, and all the material, data, and information that you upload or transmit through a robtop game client or the service, or that other users upload or transmit, including, without limitation, any chat text. By transmitting or submitting any user content while using the service, you affirm, represent, and warrant that such transmission or submission is A. accurate and not confidential or misleading, B. not in violation of any laws, contractual restrictions, or other third-party rights, and you have permission from any third party whose personal information or intellectual property is comprised in the user content. C. Free of viruses, adware, spyware, worms, or other malicious code. And D. You acknowledge and agree that any of your personal information within such content will at all times be processed by robtop in accordance with its privacy policy. Content screening. robtop assumes no responsibility for the conduct of any user submitting any user content, and assumes no responsibility for monitoring the service for inappropriate content or conduct. We do not and cannot pre-screen or monitor all user content. Your use of the service is at your own risk. By using the service, you may be exposed to user content that is offensive, indecent, or otherwise not in line with your expectations. You bear all risks associated with the use of any user content available in connection with the service. At our discretion, our representatives or technology may monitor and or record your interaction with the service or communications, including without limitation chat text when you are using the service. By entering into these terms of service, you hereby provide your irrevocable consent to monitoring and recording. You acknowledge and agree that you have no expectation of privacy concerning the transmission of any user content. robtop reserves the right in its sole discretion to review, monitor, prohibit, edit, delete, disable accounts to, or otherwise make unavailable any user content, including without limitation your user content, without notice for any reason or for no reason at any time. If at any time robtop chooses in its sole discretion to monitor the service, robtop nonetheless assumes no responsibility for user content and assumes no obligation to modify or remove any inappropriate user content. We have the right, but not the obligation, in our sole discretion to edit, refuse to post, or remove any user content. Information used by other members of the service. Public discourse. The service may include various forums, blogs, and chat features where you can post user content, including your observations and comments on designated topics. robtop cannot guarantee that members will not use the ideas and information that you share. Therefore, if you have any idea or information that you would like to keep confidential and or don't want others to use, do not post it on the service. robtop shall have no responsibility to evaluate, use, or compensate you for any ideas or information you may choose to submit. Responsible for your own content. You are solely responsible for the information that you post on, through, or in connection with the service and that you provide to others. robtop may reject, refuse, post, or delete any user content for any or no reason, including but not limited to user content that, in the sole judgment of robtop, violates the terms of service. Your license to robtop. You hereby grant robtop an irrevocable, perpetual, transferable, fully paid, royalty-free worldwide license, including that the right to sublicense and assign to third party, and right to copy, reproduce, fix, adapt, modify, create derivative works from, manufacture, commercialize, publish, distribute, sell, license, sublicense, transfer, lease, transmit, publicly display, publicly perform, or provide access to electronically, broadcast, communicate to the public by telecommunication, display, perform, enter into computer memory, and use and practice in any way your user content, as well as all modified and derivative works thereof in connection with our provision of the service, including marketing and promotion of the service. You also hereby grant robtop the right to authorize others to exercise any of the rights granted to robtop under these terms of service. You further hereby grant robtop the unconditional, irrevocable right to use and exploit your name, likeness, and other information to or material included in any user content and in connection with any user content, without any obligation to you. Except as prohibited by law, you waive any rights of attribution and or any moral rights you may have in your user content, regardless of whether your user content is altered or changed in any manner. robtop does not claim any ownership rights in your user content, and nothing in these terms of service is intended to restrict any rights that you may have to use and exploit your user content. robtop has no obligation to monitor or enforce your intellectual property rights in order to your user content. User interactions. You are solely responsible for your interactions and with other users of the service and any other parties with whom you interact with through robtop games or the service. robtop reserves the rights but has no obligation to become involved in any way with these disputes. You will fully cooperate with robtop to investigate any suspected unlawful, fraudulent, or improper activity, including without limitation, granting robtop access to any password-protected portions of your account. If you have a dispute with one or more users, you release us and our officers, directors, agents, subsidiaries, joint ventures, and employees from claims, demands, and damages, actual and consequential, of every kind and nature, known and unknown, arising out of or in any way connected with such disputes. Fees and purchase items. Purchases. In the service, you may purchase with real-world money, limited, personal, non-transferable, non-sublicensable, irrevocable license to use, A. Virtual currency, including but not limited to virtual cash, gems, or bucks, all for use in robtop games. B. Virtual in-game items, together with virtual currency, virtual items. And C. Other goods and services, merchandise. You are only allowed to purchase virtual items from us or our authorized partners through the service and not in any other way. robtop may manage, regulate, control, modify, or eliminate virtual items and or merchandise at any time with or without notice. robtop shall have no liability to you or any other third party in the event robtop exercises such rights. The transfer of virtual items and merchandise is prohibited except where expressly authorized in the service. Other than expressly authorized in the service, you shall not sell, purchase, redeem, or otherwise transfer virtual items or merchandise to any person or entity or attempt any of the aforesaid, including but not limited to robtop, any other user, or any third party. All purchases and redemptions of virtual items made through the service are final and non-refundable. The provision of virtual items for use in robtop games is a service provided by robtop that commences immediately upon acceptance by robtop of your purchase. Updates to the service. You understand that the service is an evolving one. robtop may require that you accept updates to the service and that robtop's games you have installed on your computer or device. robtop may require that you accept updates. robtop may require that you accept updates to the service and robtop's games you have installed on your computer, on your device or computer. You acknowledge and agree that robtop may update the service and robtop games with or without notifying you. I need to do this whole section again. Updates to the service. You understand that the service is an evolving one. robtop may require that you accept updates to the service and to robtop's games you have installed on your device or computer. You acknowledge and agree that robtop may update the service and robtop games with or without notifying you. You may need to update third-party software from time to time in order to receive the service and play robtop games. Disclaimer of warranties. Without limiting robtop's liability under Section 7 below, the service is provided on an as-is and as-available basis for your use without warranties of any kind express or implied, including without limitation the warranties of merchandising patentability, fitness for a particular purpose, title, non-infringement, and those arising from course or of dealing or uses of trade. RobTop does not warrant that you will be able to access or use the service at the times or location of your choosing, that the service will be uninterrupted or error-free, that defects will be corrected, or that the game or the service are free of viruses or other harmful components. Some jurisdictions do not allow the exclusion of certain warranties. Accordingly, some of the above disclaimers do not apply to you. Limitation of liability. RobTop Games AB shall not be liable to you for any indirect, incremental, consequential, special, punitive, or other similar damages, including but not limited to loss of revenues, lost profits, lost data, or business interruption, or other intangible losses, however such losses are qualified, arising out of or relating in any way to these terms of service or the service itself, whether based on contract, tort, or any other legal theory, and whether or not RobTop has been advised of the possibility of such damages. In no event shall RobTop be liable to you for more than the account you have paid to RobTop in ordinance with these terms of service in 180 days immediately preceding the date on which you first assert a claim. You acknowledge and agree that if you have not paid anything to RobTop during such time period, your sole remedy and RobTop's exclusive liability for any dispute with RobTop is to stop using the service and cancel your account. Nothing in these terms of service shall affect the statutory rights of any consumer or exclude or restrict any liability resulting from gross negligence or willful misconduct of RobTop, or for death or personal injury arising from any negligence or fraud of RobTop. You agree to indemnify, defend, and hold RobTop and our officers, directors, agents, and employees harmless from any claim, demand, damages, or other losses, including reasonable attorney's fees, asserting by any third party resulting from or arising out of your use of the service or any breach by you of these terms of service. However, the foregoing does not apply if the infringement of rights is not attributable to your intentional or negligent behavior. General terms. Force majeure. I don't know what that word is. RobTop shall not be liable for any delay or failure to perform resulting from causes outside of RobTop shall not be liable for any delay or failure to perform resulting from causes outside of the reasonable control of RobTop, including without limitation any failure to perform hereunder due to unforeseen circumstances or cause beyond RobTop's control, which may include any act of God, storm, fire, flood, casualty, unanticipated work stoppage, power outage, satellite failure, strike, lockout, labor dispute, civil disturbance, riot, war, national emergency, governmental action, or other service or other cause beyond control. Severability. You and RobTop agree that if any provision of this agreement is held unlawful, void, or for any reason unenforceable, then that provision will be deemed serviceable from this agreement and will not affect the validity and enforcement ability of any remaining provisions. No waiver. The failure or delay of RobTop to require or enforce strict performance by you of any provision of these terms of service, or the RobTop privacy policy, or failure to exercise any right under them shall be construed as a waiver of RobTop's right to assert or rely upon any such provision or right in that any other instance. Additionally, any provision, condition, or requirement of these terms of service or the robtop privacy policy expresses waived shall not constitute a waiver for any future obligation to comply with the terms, except as expressly and specifically set forth in these terms. No representations, statements, waivers, consents, or other acts or omissions by robtop shall be deemed a modification of these terms of service, nor legally binding unless documented in physical writing, hand signed by a duly appointed officer of robtop and by you. Supplemental terms. robtop may publish additional policies related to specific services, such as community forums, contests, or special events. Your right to use such services is subject to both the specific policies set forth and these terms of service. Entire agreement. This agreement, including the robtop privacy policy and any applicable additional terms, is the entire agreement between parties relating to the matters contained herein. Assignment. robtop may assign or delegate these terms of service and or the robtop privacy policy in whole or in part to any person or entity at any time with or without your consent. You may not assign, delegate any rights or obligations under the terms of service or privacy policy without robtop's prior consent, and any unauthorized assignment and delegation by you is ineffective. Notices. We may notify you via postings on robtopgames.com and via email or any other communications means to contact information you provide to us. All notices given by you or required from you under these terms of service or by the robtop privacy policy shall be in writing, addressed to robtop games AB, Fresta, Kjærvej 10 19454 Uplands, Vasby, Sweden. Any notices that you provide without compliance with this section on notices shall have no legal effect. Equitable remedies. You acknowledge that the rights granted and obligations made under these terms of service to robtop are of a unique and irreplaceable nature, the loss of which shall irreparably harm robtop and which cannot be replaced by monetary damages alone, so that robtop shall be entitled to injunctive or other equitable relief without the obligations of posting any bond or surety or proof of damages. In the event of any breach or anticipatory breach by you, you irrevocably waive all rights to seek injunctive or other equitable relief, to enjoin or restrain the operation of the service or any robtop game, exploitation of any advertising or other materials issued in connection therewith, or exploitation of the service, or any content or other material used to displace through the service, and agree to limit your claims to claims for monetary damages, limited by Section 7, if any.